Yep.
Are there any other type questions? And then we'll have Major Woods do some talk. All right.
Right, okay. Thank you, thank you, Chair, for kind of teeing that up. My name is Ed Vogt. I'm with the police department. Where do I stand for that?
So yeah, there's a book about it there. That's good.
All right, so in case they can't hear it. So there was a couple incidents on both November 7th, happened to be the day after the election. And I will tell you that I realize I'm trying to think about time limitation for Thanksgiving, but realize this, regardless of whatever time you provide, Professor, you can always call me. 24/7, my cell phone, I'll give it to you. There is never an issue with contacting me, and I'll get back with you like immediately. It could be that night or the next morning. So we had an incident that was on our body worn camera. Everybody, is there anybody not aware of that? Okay. So on body worn camera, 2 officers waiting in the stairwell to contact the subject that we were later going to arrest for a gun. One of those officers was making completely inappropriate remarks, and I'm very, very disappointed in that, because the issue there is not body worn camera footage capturing an officer that's doing something inappropriate. The issue is doing something inappropriate in the workplace, period. If it was never on camera, it's still wrong. So we released that as part of entire public records. We don't hide, I don't avoid things like that. Sometimes you're gonna have to have a difficult conversation. This is one of them. We released that body worn camera, lock, stock and barrel. And one reporter who I spoke to and got interviewed released it. And so that led to the college. I think we learned it on the weekend, maybe a Saturday or Sunday. And then once we saw that, we put out something that I think probably the big issue there was, it was vague. It was designed to be probably deliberately vague, but I could speak to any specifics related to that. So now internally, many of you all are managers and have subordinates. That's not the way we do business at Santa Fe College, nor is it the way we do business at Santa Fe College Police Department, period. So I've been here 13 years. And I can count you basically on one hand. I got the major back there. The amount of things where we have to deal with somebody internally and say, that's not us, not the college, not the way you represent law enforcement. And this is one of them. So we are doing that. The one thing I can't speak to is, so people want to know, well, what's going to happen specifically to that person. So think as managers, if you're a manager and you have something in your particular area, you're going to handle it. But it will be, and then there's going to be no attempt to hide those actions either. What those sanctions are. One thing, this is not in the way of making an excuse, because there's no excuse for inappropriate behavior in the workplace, is all our officers, this is something I'm proud of, and it's important to indicate of the way we actually do business, is go through this thing called CIT. Is anyone familiar with CIT? So it's crisis intervention team training, but what it is it's a full week of intensive training related to mental health, vulnerable persons, different types of addictions, the very old, the very young. In other words, interacting with populations in ways that make sure that we're interacting in ways that we can identify what's going on and hopefully remedy or facilitate what's occurring. So at the PD, our PD, 100% of our personnel go through that training, 100%. So like the next class is in 2 weeks. It's organized by Alachua County Victim Services. It's roughly offered about 3 or 4 times a year. And whenever we have someone who's new or hired, like right now, we have 2 people who have not been through it. So they're registered in the class. 24 students from around the region. Law enforcement supports CIT universally in our area. I think we're very progressive in that regard. And we've always been very proud to say 100% you're going. I've been through, the major's been through. So why is that important? Because when I say, golly, you need more professional development as the way you should treat people and be kind to people and compassionate and respectful. Well, that's that also in that particular professional training. And it's good. It's scenario based also for 3 of the 5 days. Meaning you have actors from the crisis center who are providing interesting times of crisis that then they get the officers go in and kind of deal with that. So that's it, I think, as that particular incident. If you want more specifics other than the sanction piece, I'm happy to get you. And also the body worn camera footage is public record. There's no way around that, nor would I ever want there to be a way around that.
So-
even if it's negative.
Before we kind of get to questions, I think there had also been some questions about the actual like gun incident.
Okay,
And
well, that's good. That's a good one.
alerts and, why weren't people alerted? So if you could give like a.
What, did you have something you want to
That's
say?
something that Dr. Brody said, what she really talked about during coordinating council. And Chief, you can fill in some blanks if I have them, but these are very quick timing decisions that have to be made by the subject matter experts. The police go through the training, the police have that training, they have to make those instantaneous decisions. And it was also, there was a concern that a widespread ENS notification that would buzz everybody's phone and laptops and everything else may increase the risk of a dangerous situation. It was handled in less than 30 minutes and the individual was taken into custody without incident. So it's not what people necessarily were thrilled about, but the police did their job the way they should.
So, all right, well, thanks for that. So this is an interesting incident. I don't know what you all know about the specifics, but again, we avoid nothing. So this is through the BIT team, we have the See Something, Say Something reporting. If you go on, if you search on the website concern or threatening behavior and a few other terms within 2 clicks, which is a best practice, you get to a page that says, put something in, concern or threatening. And then at the top, it says, if an emergency, you're going to dial 911 to the police. So that's the big header at the top. If not, put in the information. You have drop down boxes for different behaviors. A lot of times we get those for self-harm. We get those for someone who has written something awkwardly, like in a classroom. People have said something that made other people feel uncomfortable. These are some of the most common see something, say something referrals that the BIT gets. And then in this particular case, it was an anonymous, no reporter, saying, I overheard this person, the name is, overheard this person say they carry a firearm at all times. That's it. And they also listed a classroom. So that came in a early evening. So it went into the BIT. So 9 members get it simultaneously. It is anonymous, which is important. Doesn't indicate any threat, indicates firearm, which some people do equate, and that's okay. If you feel like your firearm automatically is threat, that's fine. So we looked at what we learned was we have a couple of students with that name, but a couple is a lot better than, let's say, a that may be common. And one of those names comes back, and so we start looking, what can we tell about them? So we look at some databases. We see no threat, but we do see that we have a student by that name in B12. B12 is a classroom, and the next time, if that person is even attending class, we don't see anything else unusual about that with some of the stuff we look at. Next time they're going to be there is in like a day and a half. So the plan is, okay, let's take a look at what we know about the person, and we see, I will just tell you, we see no threat. What we see is a anonymous call that says this person may carry a firearm because they overheard that. And anonymous tips decrease the capability for the actions that we can take. So that's just a fact. That's just the way it goes. So our plan is we're never going to let that person, if that's even the person, let's look at the picture. They're not getting to a classroom. We're going to wait in the stairwell. We know what they look like. Assuming they look like the picture, assuming the tip is about that person. And when they come, we're going to have a conversation. And we did. That's exactly what happened. This is not a emergency notification system. It's not a lockdown. It's not a capability where you send everybody and say SF alert. I will always defer in the interest of, caution and safety to basically provide a warning. If we need to send that out, we're going to do that in abundance of caution. If we're weighing advantages and disadvantages, that's not this. We don't know that we have the right person, but we got 2 facts. So we stop him. He never gets to the classroom's unaware. And he says, yes, I do. I do have a gun. I carry it all the time. Doggone it. Why do I have it here? I don't know if you all know firearms laws in Florida are, you can carry a gun in virtually everywhere. You can't carry it on Santa Fe College's campus, but you can leave it in the car. You can drive it on North Road. You can be in virtually anywhere. There's a couple exceptions. The legislature is exception. Can't have it in legislative hall. Can't have it in a sporting or athletic event. Can't have it on a college campus. So he had 2 firearms. he works at a gun store. I don't want to mitigate what I feel about him bringing them, because I think he knew exactly what he was doing. He says he forgot and he has a constitutional right to carry, and I say, I don't care. It's a felony. You don't bring him on our campus. We arrested him, we charged him, state attorney is dealing with that case, and that was it. So we brought him back to the PD. We looked at all this stuff. We've gotten several calls about him since. The calls are typically always people that are speaking on his behalf, you know, because he worked at a gun store. He knew gun laws, so he shouldn't have brought him. He carries them all the time. He said he forgot he didn't leave it in the car. That's actually the incident. The rationale of contacting him on campus, I think, was really critical. Because if we went to his house, we spoke to his parents. They're in some professions where they would have knowledge of guns too. He has some additional, firearms and weapons and targets and things like that at the house. So we did all that right after we contacted him. And we feel like it was exactly as the anonymous threat. He was overheard saying, I carry a gun in some social conversation, probably on campus. The anonymous reporter came to our PD just last week and said, hey, this student has not been at the classroom for a while. And I may have been the one who reported this one of the weekdays last week. And we said, really, what's the student's name? And it was that student. And so he has since identified himself and said, I wonder, because we haven't seen him in class, because once we arrested him, we also did some, you do some of the internal FERPA related types of actions, and the college is handling those FERPA actions. So he's not in class either. And then whatever happens, happens on those processes. So that's the, did you have a question?
Look, I'm waiting for you to finish.
Oh, no, go right ahead. I mean, I've been talking for a while, so.
So you intentionally permitted him to return to campus in one of our buildings in order that you could arrest him for
No,
knowing that he had a gun on campus.
no, we didn't permit him to do anything because he
visited
could,
his house after you contacted him.
Yeah,
You could have visited the house before, right?
yes, we could visit the house if we know that's the subject. But all we knew was we have the name
But you could
and we have the
asked.
thing. So what we decided was if we contact him anywhere but on campus, number one, we'll have much less opportunity to get information that may allow us to charge him and mitigate long-term risk
That's what I said.
and safety. So that's very important. We didn't permit him. We contacted him proactively. And we also wanted to catch him by surprise, right? Because you catch someone by surprise, you're gonna get, let's say, a lot more authentic and genuine information in general. So if we stopped him in the parking lot, he could tell us, go get bent, basically. Or I have nothing, or I have guns. And you know what we would do? This, because it would be lawful. And if somebody is truly overheard on our campus saying that they're carrying something, we do have gun calls from time to time. We've had it in a lab where someone's gun was showing from a sheet. This is a few years ago. And it was a law enforcement officer not doing what they should have been doing, which is not concealing in an appropriate way. We've had it occasionally at graduation. And we've had a professor where they called in who had a bunch of body camera type of equipment, and they called him in as carrying all kinds of weapons, and we stopped that person. We were there where the person was and said, wait a minute, that's a professor. So no, we didn't permit him to do anything. We didn't even know if we had the right person. We thought if we catch him unaware, by surprise, with two officers, and we're able to charge him, we're gonna solve long-term risk and safety on the interest. We go to his house, we have nothing, and we have no capability of getting in or talking, so.
Not to quibble, but that's basically what I asked.
Yeah, but so that's, I mean, I understand your perception. I felt like in this particular case, we handled it that for long-term safety was the absolute best. Now, he's been charged. I think any other contact, it's very arguable because everything else would have been lawful. Right? If he's in the parking lot, lawful, on North Road, lawful, on the campus, no tolerance. So.
Right, I've got a few people in line,
Okay.
for questions. We'll do George, then Mark, then Chris, and then I can add more people.
All right,
So if you want to be added. raise your
I'll
hand.
be quick on the answers too, so in case there's different questions.
Are these two incidents related?
Oh, yeah, yes, they're
Okay.
related. So it's the officers are in the stairwell while they're waiting for that class to begin. They're waiting for people to come into the building. That is the footage of them hanging out in the stairwell. So you got about 3 minutes footage waiting to see if this person who looks like in B12 is coming in that building. So yes, thank you.
Mark, is that?
First off, no, I'm no quarterbacking of how the event was handled whatsoever. I'm I'm appreciative of the professionalism of our PD and I think y'all showed very good judgment on that. As far as the communication that went out, however, after speaking with several of constituents that are within facilities and finance, talking with a few other people, that communication caused a lot more problems than what it was attempting to solve.
Which one are we talking
The
about?
email that went out.
That I sent out at
Yeah, so
that night.
my issue is not with PD.
Understand.
The issue that I'm bringing up is with the communication that was sent out by the college.
I could address that again. This is.
Well, let me
Okay.
finish. The most common issues with only one exception, everybody else I talked to said that the first thing that they thought when they read that message was, what did I say? Why am I in trouble? It was common in the extreme for people who read it that I talked to assume that it was about something that they did. And that feeling of, am I in serious trouble when I go to work on Monday morning? The only exception was someone who knew from seeing the reporter's article by chance and already knew what basically was going on and therefore had context to put it in. So the request is, when sending out notifications like that, which are appreciated, the openness and transparency is definitely highly valued. But when the message gets watered down and generically worded to such a degree that all context and meaning is stripped out, it causes a lot of fear and anxiety. So if you would add enough detail to contextualize it without violating someone's due process or privacy. I know that's a fine line to walk.
It is, and I don't just send things out because I'm bored. This is something that is vetted through the police, through executive leadership. The incident was released on one media outlet, picked up by Reddit, and gained a bit of notoriety over the weekend. There was a relatively small group of employees that had notified their supervisors that were aware of it, that were very concerned. And the college decided that, at the risk of letting maybe 80% or more of the population that had no idea what I was talking about aware that there was some incident, they would rather be fully transparent and say this occurred, an incident occurred, a person was caught saying something, the college does not condone it, and it is being dealt with. We thought that the is being dealt with part would have hopefully alleviated the.
That's valid.
100%,
That's a valid
100% got taken the other direction, not 100%, but 87% got taken.
Did we put, I don't remember, did we put PD?
Yes.
Did we didn't?
No.
Police
Santa
department?
Fe employee.
I mean, I'm looking at this right now.
Said Santa Fe employees are held to higher
That could
standards.
alleviated about 95% of the people, because that's only down to us then, right?
Instead of voice.
That's valid.
Says the Santa Fe is dressed in.
Instead of it being handled internally in the
Yeah.
police department. That was the.
That's valid. We should, if we put PD, then we've just eliminated 95% of people being concerned. And I tell you one thing, I did have a hand in on the communication. It's important to take on, is that I felt we should send something out, because I said, I probably the vast majority of the people we send something out are not going to know about it. But why find out from a colleague or third hand or from someone else? But that part, we should have done.
And please don't get me wrong, the communication is appreciated, absolutely. It's just.
Yeah, but we could have
wording was
been more
very
finite.
problematic on this.
We could have eliminated a lot of people concerned about they said something offhand in the kitchen, on there. So, yeah, okay.
But wait, I mean, I'm just, didn't our chief of staff handle that? Is that part of that position, or? General counsel, would that be somebody that was involved?
She was involved in the process, as was the president, as was the chief of police. There was discussion about having the chief send the message out, and then the president, he wanted me as the college spokesperson to release it. Also coming from the president's office to somewhat take it out of the police. Completely handling the whole thing, at least have the college be aware that the college is aware of the whole situation.
Yeah, I was okay with it coming out under my byline because if it does, that might also, what you said, Mark, that might give people a little more context.
Right, Kristen.
The CIT training, how often do they go through it?
You do it one time. Like I said, they offer it 3 or 4 times a year. It's limited to 24 students. So some of the larger agencies, they'll never have the opportunity for everybody to get through. If, we've had a couple civilians, our victim advocate go through, and we've had some role players go through, but every one of our sworn members has to go through that training. Like I said, the next class is in 2 weeks. We have 3 people at the moment registered out of those 24.
Is there any kind of periodic follow-up mental health issue training?
Tons. That's a great question. So we have Major, we have X amount of hours that we have every 4 years that you have to have. So within a 4-year period, you have to have many different topics. One might be mental health, one is dealing with domestic violence, one is interviewing minors. So there's many there in law enforcement, for what it's worth, like higher ed, there's a tremendous amount of professional development that is mandated. And yes, topics cover mental health, dealing with vulnerable populations, addiction, that come regardless, separate and distinct. And we actually have to file that, and the major has to send it to the state. And it keeps us, really, it keeps you involved in trends that could change also. So it's a good question. The answer is yes.
And I had a different question. You mentioned the 3 minutes of video. How much video was released?
Well, everything that's under, we have a case report number. So, Major, do you remember? I mean, it's yeah, it's about half an hour.
That's
Yeah.
At least.
over an hour.
No, about half an hour.
Okay,
Just a little bit over half an hour, not an hour.
okay.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Right, Elda is next.
So one of the things that I've heard concerned about, and I know I certainly wondered about it as well, was hearing about it on Reddit. Well, more about official college channels. And so the issue with that is, and please understand, utmost respect and all of that for all of the folks. I know this is a difficult situation. My larger concern in this is trust is a really fine thing, right? It's so tenuous. And when you have these two back to back, it makes people sort of pause or wonder, are we hearing the whole thing? Who are these folks? Unfortunately, it's really easy for people to forget the years of amazing work of building community and building trust and building relationships. So my suggestion or my comment is, number one, it would be great to hear it from the college, at least when it's putting it out, when it's coming out there, but also to maybe this is an opportunity to, in January, to do some strong community engagement and to remind folks that we have amazing police department, and we have folks who are here looking out for us. And that, we do try to be transparent, just to kind of reestablish that, because the two back to back
Well, within
is unfortunate.
3 hours of the incident occurring, the initial incident, we did put out a statement. Chief both worked on it, Lisa Brodsky and Marcom, and they did release it on our news feed.
The arrest, we're talking the arrest.
Yeah.
The issue with the body cam was not known to anybody at the college until the reporter asked for the tape got sent out, and then so we saw that on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Monday, it was amongst the major topics of the executive leadership team meeting, and by Monday, late in the day, at 8 o'clock or whatever was when I sent the announcement out, they told me to.
Yeah, the most important thing you said was the trust and how fleeting it is, especially in law enforcement and public safety. It's exactly what I said. I said, golly, we had this great annual Run with the Cops event not 5 days ago. Nobody cares about that. We had this, what I consider this arrest was done extremely well. And we can argue about it, but I felt like this is exactly what you do to make sure if somebody's doing something and they're violating college rule or law, we get them off campus. I thought that was done extremely well. But then I said, this incident, people forget. forget, because it only takes, something like that. That's exactly the conversation we've had at the PD with my supervisory group was, law enforcement are held to a higher standard. That's appropriate that we're held to a higher standard. And, so basically I agree with you 100%.
Alex, next, I will actually give you.
So my second year journalism major student broke the story and he did it through public requests. And he did it after not getting a clear explanation of the original story. He doesn't work for the Alligator, even the St. Bernard. He has his own local public info site he works on with other community members. First, I want to acknowledge how strong our journalism students are, but for another, I think more direct communication to the college community would prevent this first story from becoming a whole other story. So I think that's kind of the big tragedy here. I hope we consider that this internal reprimand is communicated transparently since the origin was not. I also worry when my student must navigate the rest of his Santa Fe career with his most famous story being this one. And I also want to know why nearby buildings like B weren't informed or locked down. I understand not sending like a buzz to everybody on campus, but that was pretty close to where a lot of people are teaching. And I think a lot of us were concerned that we didn't have like a proximity kind of established.
Well, so it sounded like you had 2 or 3 questions in there.
Yep.
The student, I got interviewed by the student. We gave him all kinds of information provided. We actually didn't know, like Jay said, until he wrote. So good for him. That's journalism. Can't fault him for doing good journalism. That's just that.
But he does worry now, that's his reputation now.
I don't know. He writes stories all the time. I mean, I didn't even know him, and he writes tremendous amount of stories on there. So I don't know. If he ever feels like there's some concern, he talk, I'd say you did your job. There's nothing from a police department standpoint. What was the second part?
Just the communication between the first part,
Lockdown.
becoming a whole nother story.
Lockdown, Professor, I got it. Yeah, so remember, what we have is, we have, what can we do? We know what we have some access control in some buildings. That's on a 10-year plan. Where we have those, you can lock an exterior door down. Remember the intent here, the intent is, based on anonymous tip, is try and contact someone if we can wipe out any capability for them to do anything again, if they even are doing something. So we didn't have the ability to lock down a building or evacuate a building and still wait for somebody to show up and hope to catch them unaware. That would actually defeat that purpose.
I wasn't necessarily just saying lockdown, but more communication that like, hey, there was an incident, we just need y'all to stay in place for a few minutes while we handle this, or something like that, keep it internal, but keep it like not, panic buttons.
I don't know if there's a mechanism to know who all would be in a particular building at a particular time.
Just who's in the building, like walk through and say like, whoever is around, people in their units, those kind of things, other employees.
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
One of the things that I think hasn't been clear in a lot of folks' minds, and I know this has come up several times in conversations I've had, not just about this, but other things. What is the difference? I know that the PD evaluates situations for threat, a clear and present danger, or however it's framed. What are the characteristics of a threat versus an issue or incident? How are those two things different? Because your response to a threat is different than your response to an issue.
So this is a good question. This deals with kind of like some Department of Ed guidance for how we deal with things, not just police, but security or colleges in general. We do have, I won't get into the weeds on it, but the Clery Act defines both what is called a timely warning and an emergency, and how we have to communicate that. Now, the beauty for us is, if we felt like a tornado, by the way, is a threat. So we're not just, I think sometimes people are narrowly thinking weapons, but most threats are not that. A building fire is a threat, something that's electrified. And if that is going to impact a college campus, a higher education campus, we are mandated for good reason, even if we weren't, it's the right thing to do, to notify the campus, to do things like evacuate, lock down, check, put people in a safe space, what we call a hard corner in the building. So an example of a threat would be a tornado with 20-minute time frame. We have to send out something because people have to be given some guidance. Not much guidance, by the way, because we're limited. in text and time to give just enough for people to understand what should I do. In that, what would be an active threat for, like a weapon would be somebody is threatening to hurt someone or is seen with a firearm, running into a building or yelling, or we have an incident in Oak Grove where somebody many years ago, I think about 9 years ago, was seen on camera with a gun and they had just threatened somebody else. Those would be threats. Something that would not be is somebody merely reporting that somebody was food insecure. They wrote something unusual. It has to be imminent. So maybe that's one of the nuances. It has to be imminent. It has to be dangerous. Again, dangerous doesn't have to be weapon, and it has to generally impact your higher education community. If it's time limited, if it's handled, like in this case, the fact that it's handled and there's no additional incident, that doesn't qualify. And we do not attempt to say, one thing is we don't attempt to do, we don't go, it's arguably a threat. Don't put out something. Why would we do that? From me, my standpoint as a police department, if we're going to err on the side of putting out something, if we feel it's impacting our college community, we did that about a year and a half ago in graduation. There was a big disturbance here at the crossing, and it was an armed disturbance, but people were coming across the campus, and it was at night. So I can't remember if it was Friday night or Thursday night. And it was about the time that our graduation was getting out. The timing from a standpoint of an ENS notification is awful, right? People are coming out and they're about to be anxious and nervous. I said, yeah, but we actually know that there is people being hurt or threatened over there. We know there's a weapon involved and we know it's off campus and it's not contained. So as people are coming out of graduation totally unaware, they may end up driving into that same arena. So right near the end of graduation, you all got this. We sent out an ENS alert. I thought, golly, what terrible timing, but it's still the right thing to do. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, Mr. Provost. Has to be imminent. It can't be contained, and it does have to threaten in general a higher education community. A tip doesn't qualify. Somebody who might have, a knife on them and they're in Oak Grove doesn't qualify. Someone yelling at somebody else would not qualify. It has to be, it does have to impact more than say single incident and not be finite.
All right, I've got 3 more people on the list, and I think we should probably wrap this up a little bit.
Yes, sir, Dr. Price.
No, Dr. Price.
He's not next. You want me to take him?
It's Nick.
Yeah, I'm next.
Oh, Nick. Sorry.
So I want to circle back to the comments made by the police officer. What was the last time, or when did he do the CIP training? Because what he essentially did was profile, and because of that, I don't feel comfortable calling police. And I think that's a big deal, is that and I understand that it should be allowed, nobody on campus should be allowed to do that. But the police department has the responsibility to maintain these unbiases because they are armed. And they're the ones that protect and serve, and they're the ones that are supposed to be watching out for everyone on campus. So with that comment, he disavows half the population, or whatever population of the student population that voted for Kamala Harris. And it was all based on the looks of that student. And
So I don't think it's limited.
I have a huge problem with that, because if I have a veteran who is having a crisis intervention problem, he is having a whatever, I call the police, or I notify you guys, and you are going to be the one that provides the assistance based on the situation at hand. And I need to be comfortable. I need to know for a fact that they are not going on their biases when they come into my office to address these veterans.
So that goes back to what Professor Montero was talking about, right? That trust is a very, very fleeting thing. It can take one particular incident to say, golly, do I trust that organization or that entity because of what's happened? So that I understand. That's a perception that's totally understandable. It shouldn't be limited to whether we're armed. It should be, how do you treat people? Do you treat them with respect? Do you treat them with courtesy? Do you, whatever things we call, whether we think someone has implicit bias or we don't? The fact is, you must act and behave and say things in certain ways that are appropriate in the workplace. So we're in agreement, totally inappropriate.
But
I would hope,
the police department has. It's been all over the news for the past 3 or 4 years of everything that the police department has done, and I'm not saying that you guys are part of that. But when you say, yeah, everyone should be acting like this, all right, but I don't have access, obviously, I don't have access to a firearm on campus, I don't have access to arrest or detain someone lawfully. So I watched that video and my first thought was, what if that student was black? So that's all I got.
understood, the perceptions are valid, and you asked a question at the beginning, which dealt with CIT training. Officer came from a different agency, and many years, had it there. But some time ago and not in our region, so that might give you a little insight on something. So has not had it here with Letcher County Victim Services. That's a direct answer to that particular.
We're gonna,
I don't think we didn't look at that real quick.
we're gonna finish up our list, which is Laurel, Kathy, and then Dave, and then we're gonna move on.
Okay. Okay.
So Laurel's next.
I just want to make sure I understand, some of the timing, so. Our police department did not know about the comments before the reporter, so the reporter's the one who watched the video, heard the comments. Didn't report it to you, but wrote it in an article, is that correct?
That's true.
So it's not, I was under the impression that our college knew about it. And then it was written about, but what I'm hearing is, we didn't know until it was pointed out on Reddit / this article, and that's when we jumped on it. Is
No,
that correct?
I appreciate that clarification. Here is something that I feel like internally we should have done better though. We should have known before releasing. So this is just, we released things, we check for FERPA when we get a public records request, we have to get rid of an SFID, for example. We have to wipe that out, a social security number, no problem. We do that. So in the video, no, absolutely, I appreciate it. No, we did not know until it was actually out on social media. I had done an interview. The interview led to public records request for the video. We gave everything. So we were fine on the public records request. Where we should have done a better job was we should have looked at every minute of that thing interfering. We still would have actually released it, but we would have known in advance, because we can't withhold something because we don't like the content. That doesn't comport with law. I feel like we should have caught that piece on there and then known in advance. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, timeline was, it came out, that's how we get it. Was.
Kathy, Dave, and then we'll end this.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment about, the gun incident, not the police officer incident. And I read that the charter school was put on hold. And so I came back from L building from class and walked through and saw the police officers out. What to me looked like a stakeout on B12. Which is, you know, I had spit across and hit B12, and I just want you to let you know that makes us nervous. And if we had had even a heads up, just a tiny little heads up, we wouldn't have been so worried. And I'm not the only one in my unit that came from there and noticed police officers there. So you said you didn't think it was necessary, but the high school got a heads up, a hold, and they're not even in the building that it happened in. So I just wanted to let you know how we feel afterward, knowing that was happening. You know what's happening, but we don't. So maybe just, hey, there's something going on, maybe just hang in your office.
Thank you for that.